I'm so thrilled with this episode of the Killer Cross-Examination Podcast. I can't wait for you to meet and hear from my guest. She obtained a $98 million verdict against the state of Washington in one of the most followed, covered, and talked about cases in the history of the state. She actually convinced the jury that the state of Washington was negligent in failing to protect and causing the death of two boys whose father took those two boys into a house locked.
But this case wasn't just another courtroom victory. It was a story of ignored warnings, broken systems, and a tragedy that could have been prevented. What followed would not only shake a jury, but expose how power fails when it matters most.
The door and burned the house, killing himself and his two young children. She's also represented David Copperfield, the magician. She's represented countless other celebrities and stars in high-profile cases, and she is one of the most sought-after legal analysts in the country. She's a regular analyst and one of the most watched analysts on Court TV, and has provided commentary for cases that we have all read, watched, and followed. My name is Neil Rockhart. I'm known as the Rockwilder for my courtroom style. And this is the Killer Cross-Examination Podcast. And my guest is none other than Ann Bremner. Ann, welcome to the show. I know that you're on, for those who don't know, and everybody should know, you're a regular on Court TV. Is that right?
Yeah. And it's, by the way, it's an honor and a pleasure to be on with you, Neil. You're so accomplished, and I'm a fan.
I am, well, the same. So thank you. So mutual fan club aside. So
right.
I would love to hear you talk about it, if you would. Tell us about like your favorite lawyering moment, like the moment that you look back upon, and like if you couldn't be a lawyer anymore, you would say to yourself, I did that in that moment. What is it?
It happened this year. I tried a case during the pandemic that was against the state CPS for not protecting children. And they were killed by their dad in a fire with a hatchet. And I'd had the client for 10 years. I represented the grandfather, the grandparents. It's the Susan Cox Powell case. A lot of people have heard of it. It's been known nationally. She was missing, presumed murdered, and then her husband, who killed her, got the kids back from the state and then killed them through where there were like 50 red flags they should have looked at, but they just ignored them all. My proudest moment, lawyering or in court, was when that jury came back.
Winning in court is one thing. But standing in front of a jury after years of waiting, loss, and silence, that's different. Because in that moment, justice isn't about money, it's about being heard.
After being gone through the pandemic, they start the trial, then they're on hiatus from the pandemic, and then they came back, all of them, and they awarded my clients over $100 million, the highest verdict in our state history, and the highest verdict against the state. I love that jury because they came back, they stuck with it, and they wanted to be a part of something bigger than themselves. And that is, we need to take care of children in this state, in every state. And that's what this verdict stood for. So that just happened this past August. Wow. And I mean, I just started crying. I mean, I'm hugging clients, everything. But it happened this year at the end of a pretty long career. It's not the end, but
have you had
this moment was this year.
It's amazing. So when you actually leaned in, when the verdict came back, did you have a feeling that it was going to go your way? Describe for me what led you to sort of have that emotional reaction.
Well, they'd been out for a number of days, and it was a jury of 11 men and one woman. And so I wasn't thinking there would be a super emotional jury, but I really felt connected to them for the whole case. I felt like they got it. They got it from the beginning. They got it from voir dire. And so I didn't expect that high of a verdict. I expected the right verdict, but that was so over the top in terms of our expectations. It was the right verdict, but it still surprised me. And I've never felt that way with a verdict.
How
Behind every powerful verdict is a silent battle most people never see. A battle fought not with words, but with perception, emotion, and human instinct. And sometimes, the smallest details decide everything.
you brought up the voir dire you felt was like it really made an impact on the jury. Could you tell me more about that? I mean, is that something that you pride yourself on, the way that you voir dire juries? And if so, how do you do it?
Well, I like voir dire. I also had Robert Hirschhorn, who's done a lot of cases around the country. He's a jury consultant out of Texas. And so he and I picked the jury together. We picked the Mary Kay Letourneau jury together 20 years ago in a civil case. But it was more talking about safety with kids, people that are parents, people that are grandparents. And the key also is, would you be comfortable awarding tens of millions of dollars if the evidence warrants it in this case? And to look at each juror in the eye, and they all said, all the ones that remained anyway, said yes, absolutely.
Do you have the perspective? Do you try to disqualify jurors, or are you looking for jurors to agree with you, or looking for dissent when you're picking a jury like that? What's going through your mind?
What was going through my mind was basically the kind of jury that could hang together, because we were, it was going to be a long case. This started in March, right before, actually February, and recessed in March because of the pandemic. But I was looking for people that were empathetic, that had good common sense. I tend to like bowlers as jurors. I know that sounds funny, but bowlers are solid. You know what I mean? They've got that whole kind of thing going on that I really like.
Everybody has their thing. Everybody. Norm Pattis looks for jurors who he calls it bounce. He says the people that he feels like if he were to walk up to a bar in an empty, in a new town, that they would scooch over and immediately start talking to him. He's looking for those types of people.
Right. So, and those are probably bowl. Right.
I think that's awesome. I've never heard that before. Do you ask them if they bowl, or do you just kind of?
Yeah, I ask them if they bowl, and then I ask them if they bowl in the league, because if they bowl in the league, that's like ding, 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 ding. That's my juror.
Okay, so what activity, if they said that they did, would somehow set off the red flag for you as opposed to the checkered flag?
I don't know. I mean, maybe the golfers that are a little more elitist golfers, maybe, I don't know. I mean, like the folks that are like hardcore skiers, I mean, those are kind of expensive, kind of more, more self sports, as opposed to bowling in a league.
Yeah.
And doing it weekly, right? With your, right?
I think that's so interesting. So I'm not going to forget that, because I've never heard anybody say that before, but it makes sense. It's so solid. It's just solid people, like, just hardcore solid, right? So,
right.
Okay. So tell me walk me through, if you would, how your career started. Obviously, you've won huge trials. You are a talking head, if you will.
No great trial lawyer is born in the spotlight. Every reputation is built in silence, case by case, loss by loss, lesson by lesson. And this journey started long before the cameras ever turned on.
Legal analyst who actually has experience in the courtroom, but I know your career didn't just start there. It's not like somebody just dropped you into these big cases. So where did it start? And tell me how you got to this point.
Well, I went to Stanford University. I'm from Washington State. My dad's a psychiatrist. My mom's a psychiatric nurse. I used to go to, Western State Hospital with my dad, on commitments, and to the jail when people were there, like, overnight and had to see psychiatrists. So I saw a lot of the system, and he also testified in criminal trials. And then when I became a lawyer, I worked for a judge who only hired women, even back then, which was really cool. And he had a car, like a Trans Am with flames down the side, but he was the smartest judge in King County, like super uber smart. He would like shoot me notes with a sight, and I would just pick the book off the shelf for him, because he knew that's exactly what he wanted to see. But working with him got me thinking, I think I want to be a trial lawyer. I was in court, he was a bailiff clerk position. And he would give me all kinds of pointers, and I thought, I can do this. I graduated early. The people in my class, a lot of them flunked the bar. So some of those people were in the prosecutor's office. The prosecutor's office came to me and said, let's do a swap. How would you like to be, what's that? How would you like to be a prosecutor? And one of our people, it doesn't have to be bar qualified. And that's how I became a prosecutor. And I loved it. From the first to the last of that job, I loved every minute of it. I'm kind of an underdog person. I like working with victims. And as you know, in the prosecutor's office, you get tons of trial experience.
So what was your transition? When did you decide to leave the prosecutor's office and go into what is obviously a storied career in private practice?
I'd been there 5 years, and I was looking to go to a law firm or the United States Attorney's Office. I went to the law firm that represents the Seattle Police because I felt like I can do police cases, because I've been doing criminal cases. And so starting there, I did lots of high profile police cases. We know they're high profile now, they were high profile then. And then I kind of got more into the practice that I have now, Mary Kay Letourneau case, and other cases. But it took years to trial, as you know. You have to try a lot of cases, to be able to try the big ones and try them well, or to do work like you and I both do in front of a camera or a microphone.
Some cases don't just make headlines, they redefine public opinion. They challenge morality, law, and how society sees power. And once you step into a case like this, there's no stepping back.
So tell me a little bit. So I know there are people that are listening that don't remember or may not know the Mary Kay Letourneau case. That was a case in which a teacher who was really an adult ended up having a relationship with a student. And tell me a little bit, what was your involvement in that case, and what was it like to be? Because that case was like center of the universe, legal, right? I mean, there was that case was a high profile case, as high profile as they came back then.
Yeah, it was an 11-week long trial and was covered by Court TV live. And so it had a lot of international media. She was kind of the first, if you want to say, of a teacher, older woman with a younger student male. Her case kind of shocked the world. And she thought he was a genius. She thought they were meant to be for all eternity. And she thought he was like a sage, called him a Buddha, and that no one could understand, what was happening between them. We used to say, as the world will turn out, there's something about Mary, she's every schoolboy's dream, summer, 42, all those kinds of things. But I represented the police, and the school district and the police were sued because they didn't protect Billy from Mary. Cyrus Vance Jr., who's the Manhattan DA, represented Billy and his mother. Excellent trial lawyer. Yeah, he did an excellent job. And he basically was saying if this was a young girl, it'd be seen differently. And that's true. I mean, it was very true. There were warning signs. My people caught them together, didn't follow up. I mean, I can't go through all the details here. Take too much time, but suffice it to say.
What do you think is
we basically argued that.
Go ahead. So
Courtrooms aren't won by aggression alone. They're won by timing, restraint, and knowing exactly when silence speaks louder than words.
I was trying to get, what do you think is how would you describe your style in court? And whatever your style is today, has that always been your style, or has it changed over the years?
When I first started practicing, I wore cowboy boots and Laura Ashley dresses. I mean, so yeah, it's changed a little bit, right? I mean, it's maybe going to theory suits and Stuart Weitzman boots. I don't know, but I started out a little bit kind of Marilyn Colombo. I was kind of Legally Blonde before there was Legally Blonde. And then as my style evolved, I think I've become more serious, but I'm not a barracuda. I'm not somebody that's super aggressive. I can be with an expert, but for the most part, I think I'm somebody that's just am. But I also think that I'm a little more dramatic than a lot of lawyers. And because I've tried a lot of cases, I feel like I have a pretty good handle on evidence rules, things like that. I think
isn't it? So doesn't that give you such an advantage with that, the rules of evidence and can just click them off and you can find your way through the rules of evidence and how to get evidence in or arguably keep evidence out. And it's amazing that there are some lawyers that still to this day just don't know it. I mean, it's like not knowing where the how to, you know, if you're a mechanic, it's like not knowing how the engine operates, you know?
No, exactly. And when we were prosecutors, we had a cheat sheet of, you know, all the bases, you know, for objections, so that you could just go, you know, objection, authenticity, or, you know, whatever it is. But then we had the actual Teglin on evidence, that's in Washington State, bound volumes. We knew that stuff, you know, so when I got into civil, it was just like you said, it's like second nature. It's like, oh, that's 613 or whatever.
So I know that you've won you've won. I looked at your website. I mean, you've won like every award that somebody can win. I mean, top 5 famous criminal defense lawyers, top 10 American criminal defense lawyers, super lawyer, top 50, top celebrity lawyers, top 10 best criminal defense lawyers. I mean, do you do both? Are you currently practicing criminal defense and civil, or have you just migrated now to civil defense, civil plaintiff's work?
I know I do both, and I like both, and I tend to like criminal better. I think you can kind of, you know, howl with the coyotes and bark with the dogs, so to speak, you know, in criminal. Still, you know,
what does that mean? Like, what does that mean? Howl at the coyotes and bark at the dogs. What does that mean?
It's just sometimes fun. You get to mix it up. You know, you go to civil, it's like, you know, trial lawyers drink scotch and civil lawyers, you know, drink Chardonnay. You know, it's white wine. You know the difference.
So you're obviously you're a scotch or bourbon drinker then.
Yeah, right. Got it. Right.
I just heard a story about a judge in some big case, like in Texas, I think. Was it Texas? But all these lawyers in the last minute, they wanted to file a flurry of motions, and the judge just said, you guys are wine drinkers. I need some bourbon drinkers.
So exactly what it is. Right.
It is. Okay. So how do you, I want you to kind of give me a little bit of a sense of how do you prepare for a trial? So what is your, like, I know when I'm preparing, everything else in my life sort of goes by, you know, the wayside. I've got tables upon tables of transcripts and notes, and I'm out to dinner, and all of a sudden I'm making like little notes on my phone or writing something down. Tell me about you. How do you prepare for a case?
I mean, great minds think alike. I'm exactly like that. I don't answer the phone. I don't look at the mail. I don't talk to my friends. You know, I don't talk to my family. You know, it's a trial tunnel. You know, everything's stacked everywhere. I've got it in a desk back in my bedroom. I've a counter in my kitchen. You know, it's like a veritable war room. And I like the idea, there's that Italian word, sprezzatura, which means taking really difficult things and making them really simple. And that basically taking all that stuff that we have in the trial and getting it down to where it's simple. And so I tend to take everything and then reduce it down to notes, right? Like a couple of pages that I can use as a cheat sheet for where everything is. And so a lot of times my co-counsel will be like, how did you find that? And it's like, you know, like I looked at it, it was in this pile, but it's on my, you know.
Yeah, so, I do. I love that. So, yeah, I love that. What's the Italian word? What is it?
Sprezzatura. Sprezzatura. Means taking really difficult things and making them really simple, which is what we do as trial lawyers. Yeah, you know, that's our job.
I love that.
Right?
I love that. Okay, so tell me, if you would, what is your, like, when you begin, there's different theories out there about how to prepare, you know, to have information in front of you to cross-examine a witness. Some people have notes. F. Lee Bailey, may he rest in peace, who did this podcast, he said, "Oh, I don't believe in notes." How about you? And I don't judge either way. I get it both ways.
I am a great fan of F. Lee Bailey, may rest in peace, and I would put him up there with the top cross-examiners. You know, especially that is recounted in No Deadly Drug, that book about the Coppolino case.
It's a great book. I have it right around here somewhere.
Yeah, it's amazing. Yeah, it's just great.
All right.
How do you do it? I use documents. I mean, and that's why I still like paper in a trial, because I only use anything I can stick in front of that witness. The jury can see it, and other than that, no notes. I'm like F. Lee Bailey. I don't want to be in my notes. I don't want to be talking down to my chest. I want to be engaging. Having that witness I want to be the focus on cross, like we all want to be. Not the witness. But I want the jury to see those things, the jury to see those things, and not to have me mired in notes. I want it ready.
I can't tell you how glad I am to hear that, because I see these lawyers during a direct examination, and they're at counsel table, and they turn into like these scribes.
I hate that. Yeah.
What are they doing?
What? Yeah.
I don't know. What are they doing?
I don't know.
What are you writing down?
I know. It's like, and are you going to read it?
Like,
it's like, I don't even have.
They're writing every line.
Right.
Like, they're writing every line. You're not going to use that on cross-examination. You're not going to get up there and use that. There's a court reporter who's taking it all down better than you can write it. What are you doing? I don't get it. And then the people that sit there and they got they're writing stuff down on their legal pad while they're cross-examining. I'm like, what are you writing down up there? Like,
oh, I know. And Irving Younger, with his 10 rules of cross-examination, I mean, that guy was a god. But, like you said, you got to listen. You got to listen across, right? If you're writing down stuff, you're not listening to those answers,
Don't you see people and they miss some amazing opportunities.
Mm-hmm.
They just miss opportunities to the witness says something and they're so stuck on their next question that they miss a golden opportunity to be spontaneous. I'm not talking about, the be in the moment, but they just miss that moment where, I mean, if they were out with a friend, they wouldn't do that. How was your work day? How was your evening? My work day was awful. There was a bomb threat in the building. How was your evening after that? I mean, it's like,
no, you're so right.
I don't get it.
No, I don't get it. And sometimes when I try cases with other people, I'm like, did you just hear that? Yeah. You just said, yeah.
Okay, wait. Have you ever had anybody that you tried a case with put sticky notes up by the podium or the lectern when you're up there?
Yeah, definitely.
What do you do with that?
Well, I was defending the police dogs in the class action, and all the police dogs, cops were in the courtroom in their little jumpsuits, and they would pass those sticky notes all the way through all the dog cops, all the way through our trial team, all the way to me, and I'd put it in the garbage. And they'd be like, no.
I love it. I remember sitting there, people are putting those stickies on the lectern, and I'm like, I wanted to turn and go, what are you doing? Like, stop with the sticky notes,
Right.
So, okay.
Every trial has a turning point. A moment so subtle, the room doesn't realize it just shifted. But when it happens, the verdict is already on its way.
It's not.
All right, so give me a great, gotcha moment. Give me a great gotcha moment in a trial that you had or that you saw, or even one that you covered on Court TV in your career as a legal analyst.
Well, I was defending a very prominent rich man here. He won't use his name, here in Seattle, and his wife was alleging that he assaulted her, and she was trying to get out of a prenup to get a whole bunch of money. And so we had the criminal trial, misdemeanor, the century kind of thing, right? And I was like, it was a misdemeanor. We tried it. She's on the stand, and she was just full of it, and she kept saying to me, "You're smarter than I am." And I said, "I don't know who's smarter. You married $1 million. I didn't." The jurors laugh, And so she's like, she started faking a heart attack. I'm not kidding, on the stand. She had the perfect facelift, the perfect St. John suit, the perfect hair. And she's like, "I don't feel very well." They had to bring ambulances, and all these 8 cars for her. It was like the gotcha moment. She goes off the stand in an 8 car, came back in the morning, perfect. Hair great, everything's great. We won. It was like those jurors. I said, he was in it for love. She was in it for her.
So that is a
prenup, and
that's a great moment. And I know that we tell we tell jurors like not to expect the Perry Mason moment, but they do happen once in a while. There is a moment sometimes where where you're like, wow,
Right.
like that just happened. So tell me.
Especially just like, yeah. No,
Yeah,
I was
tell me
just
what you
gonna
think
say
about. Yeah, go ahead.
not say when she did that, you kind of did the eye roll, at the jury, like, right. And the jurors were just like, no, we won. Because she was the whole case. She was done.
Have you had a case in which the jurors you're sort of misreading the jurors along the way? You think they're with you and then they're against you, as it turns out, or you think that they're against you and it turns out they're with you?
I've had both. I think we all have. I've had jurors like roll up their instructions and wink at me. Like when I'm closing or something. I think, well, they're with me, but they weren't necessarily.
Yeah, I get it.
But yeah, I've had jurors that I thought were killing me that went out to see my cop on his beat on Alki Beach after the verdict and found in my favor. But I've also had at least one jury that I just totally couldn't read at all. I mean, I couldn't see the mask on this pandemic. I just couldn't tell where they were going. It was not the case I was talking about earlier. But for the most part, don't you think we kind of get a vibe? I mean,
yeah.
Lawyers are trained to stay composed. But some verdicts break through professionalism, straight into the heart. Because sometimes, justice feels personal.
You get a pretty good sense. So, yeah.
So the reason I asked that, and I probably should have told you my story before I asked you, because I had a case that touched upon two things that you shared with us. One is I cried at a verdict. I had a case in which I was representing a 70-year-old who was, in my opinion, wrongfully charged as a scapegoat in a case in which a state trooper was killed in what really was a tragic automobile accident. And they charged this man, and I threw everything I had into this case. I put everything I had into it. And when the verdict came back, I stood there before the verdict. There's a picture of me like in the paper doing this. I'm like, they catch me at my moment where I'm practically biting like my finger. And we were sitting down and I couldn't even pay attention I just was staring ahead. And when the verdicts started coming in, not guilty, count 2, not guilty, count 3, not guilty, I just leaned in like he was my grandfather and I just kissed him on the head and I started hugging him. And it was really a moment where I was, I just had sort of all that emotion of a year or so of defending this man in a very long trial with such high stakes. But in that trial, there was a juror number 8. I never forgot juror number 8.
Sure.
The whole trial, juror number 8, I sat there and I kept on saying, no interaction, no vibe, no positive feedback. Almost in my closing, I'm doing this, like trying to.
Juror number 8, right?
I'm trying. And it turns out that she was one of everybody else I was fairly decent at reading, I thought. She turns out she was potentially our strongest juror.
Amazing.
She was trying very hard to be, according to those that talked to her afterwards, trying very hard to be straight during the trial. Did not want to, because it was such a serious case, and didn't want to show any emotion during the case. So that's why I asked that, because everybody talks about notes and what does this note mean? What does that note mean? And this juror.
Oh, I know.
So, okay. As an analyst, I want to know your approach to being a legal analyst. So on the spectrum, I'm going to give you a spectrum question. There are the analysts that are really tough. They're really tough to the lawyers. And then all the way to the other spectrum are those that sort of try to, even if they're critical, try to massage their way sort of through the critique. Where does Ann Bremner find herself on that spectrum?
I think I'm one of the kinder, gentler ones. I think that being an analyst, you're trying to educate the public. I like the idea. I always try and make each one a little morality play, like each time I go on the air, especially if I'm just doing a hit on the news, like MSNBC or something on a case. what does it mean? What was that? What can we learn? What's the human element? What's the bigger picture for all of us? Like that's kind of the way I try and do it. So it's kind of a bigger picture than just that lawyer, they didn't do so well on this or whatever else. It's more, what does it mean to viewers? What does it mean to all of us?
How long have you been doing television legal analysis?
I don't want to say, it's been a long time since OJ, wasn't that 97?
Well, that's all right. So what's the most, what case, as you were watching it, if any, did you made the biggest impression on you as you were watching it as a legal analyst providing legal commentary?
Michael Jackson, for sure. I was there for 6 months, did mostly CNN. There were no cameras in the courtroom, so we had to kind of sing for our supper and come out and do analysis, at the Green Monster, which is kind of an area outside the courtroom. And I always thought of that F. Scott Fitzgerald quote, show me kind of loud outside my window. Go down a minute. Show me a hero and I'll write you a tragedy. That's how I saw Jackson, and it was a fascinating case with legal issues, that like crazy. Mesereau is an excellent lawyer, Tom Mesereau.
He's phenomenal.
And, he's phenomenal. And so just watching him was such a treat. And so that one had the most impact on me to basically cover a case that doesn't have cameras in the courtroom and to be fair about what you're saying, about what's happening in a really small courtroom. And it's a celebrity trial, with somebody that took a huge fall from grace. And he got back up at the end. He got back up at the end. I thought he would. And he did. And then, of course, what followed after that was Finding Neverland and a lot of bad publicity. But that trial really impacted me. And that's when I really learned about kind of the national scene of doing analysis, because I was doing it every single day. And with all the pros that were there, Jim Murray was there, Dan Abrams was there, Greg Van Susteren. I was kind of like, wow, I was like the new kid on the block, like for big stuff. And I'm like, just watching them, like, oh, I get that. Or they, give me hairs, and she got me into a salon in Beverly Hills to get my hair done. He's like, you're Seattle. You're too Seattle. You're Seattle.
What does that mean, to
okay.
Seattle?
So I guess I was just I wasn't like, LA, I wasn't California. Whatever that means, I was a little too Seattle. We're kind of down jackets and plaid, still a little bit in Seattle.
Like, what's the music that Seattle's known for? It's grunge, right? Right? Okay.
Nirvana.
So
right.
Who is if you had to pick somebody to look up to or to attempt to emulate, I know we're all our own people and supposed to be ourselves and all that, but if you had someone to emulate that you've seen in court, who would it be?
There's quite a few, but I have Gloria Allred, for what she's done, for victims all these years, and for her tenacity. And I know her. I mean, I've been on with her, and she's at the Scott Peterson trial with us. I think Tom Mesereau is another one, but I think I love Clarence Darrow. I mean, he's like my favorite. I love the fictional Atticus Finch. He's one of my favorites. And To Kill a Mockingbird. Joel Jameo is another one. Fantastic trial lawyer out of Texas. Racehorse Haynes, Dick DeGuerin. Those are the people that I look to, and I'm like, they're amazing. Just amazing.
Have you been? I have to ask because as a woman trial lawyer. I think that sometimes women trial lawyers have a more difficult time being aggressive, not because it's not in your blood, but there are still stereotypes of, oh, she's bitchy, he's aggressive or assertive.
Oh,
not fair.
Right.
Not fair.
Right.
So have you ever dealt with that, and how do you deal with that as a woman in the courtroom?
I've dealt with it a lot, but I was never super aggressive. Only sometimes an expert, or if someone messes with me, then I can really, be difficult. They used to call me a barracuda with lipstick sometimes. But I think if you play it out where you're still, you're still female, you're still feminine, you have your sense of humor, you've got, you're humble when you need to be. I think that it all works out fine. Women lawyers that are too aggressive, It's not good with the jury. You can say it's sexist, but you can't be too aggressive. I mean, we have strengths that men don't have. We can cry a lot more in a courtroom. We can, we have a range, I think, that's more acceptable than men do in a courtroom. So I try and look at it as positive, that we've got, there's certain things that we do. What?
No, it's very interesting because when I was it's a very positive, it's a glass half full way of looking at it. Because when I was a young prosecutor, there was a contemporary of mine who was a phenomenal lawyer. She was fantastic, but I always knew, I mean, she was every bit as talented and every bit just did not want to cross her in the courtroom. She was really that good and very charming. But I always knew that there were times where I thought she got labeled unfairly. So,
yeah.
All right. Let me ask you a couple of other questions about the types of things that you have kind of ahead of you in the near future. So tell me about the cases some cases that are currently like on your docket, that are on your plate, that are coming up for you in the near future that you are comfortable talking about, or that you're looking forward to trying.
Well, we're knee deep into the Cox appeal right now because the judge in our case threw out part of our verdict. He went from 98.5 million to 33.3 million. So
that's
we're on appeal. Huge. And so we're basically battling out the issue of whether or not a judge can just throw out a jury verdict because he doesn't like it, as opposed to there being some manifest, issue that the jurors somehow did something wrong in arriving at that verdict, so conduct or anything else. So we're in the middle of that. I'm working on a book right now, of all things, about Amanda Knox, Susan Cox Powell, Mary Kay Letourneau, and these cases that I've covered. So I'm busily trying to get that done. So that's kind of what I'm in right now. And in the trials that I have coming up, there's nothing there. There's a lot of cases, but I don't have anything right now that's super high profile that's on the docket.
So tell me about Amanda Cox. I saw at one point on your website that you had that you were writing a book about her or about her case. So tell me what has drawn you personally to want to write about.
In the age of media trials, truth often becomes optional. Public opinion moves faster than evidence. And once a narrative is set, innocence has to fight twice as hard.
Amanda Cox and Amanda Knox in her case.
Well, the name of the book is Justice in the Age of Judgment. And it basically is that whole idea, like in an opening statement, 80% of jurors make up their minds then, and they never change their minds. I'm kind of using that concept in terms of these big media trials. Amanda's was the first international social media trial, internet trial. It was just the test. And then the question is, how did she get convicted in the lot of basically public opinion when she was clearly innocent? And she had not one trial. She had two trials. She had three trials. We called it triple jeopardy. I mean, they just kept retrying it because they don't have double jeopardy there, including after she got acquitted. So it's kind of exploring, like, how could that happen? How could a case where there was two items of physical evidence that when they were tested on review, exonerated her? There was nothing else. How could the internet chatter and the misconceptions in the media and the characterizations of her changed all of that? And so that's kind of what I'm talking about. It's so dangerous what happened to her. 4 years in prison, and Rod Kelly too. He spent time in solitary confinement.
Have you met her?
Yes.
And
she's very shy.
So when the media portrayal of her, what they call her, Foxy Noxy.
Foxy Noxy.
The media portrayal of her was just so unfair. I mean,
oh my gosh, yeah.
So tell me, did you watch the documentary? I know there was a documentary. Was it on HBO or was it on Netflix? There was a documentary.
Yeah, Netflix.
What was your opinion of the documentary?
I thought it was excellent. Because remember, it had Nick Pisa from the Daily Mail, the journalist, and had Mignini, the prosecutor, and had Amanda. Those are the three that were interviewed. And it was excellent because it was very factual. And Nick Pisa basically admitted it was tabloid journalism. You know, that's what was selling. Foxy Knoxy, she's a she-devil. She's had all these boyfriends. And she's like going out buying lingerie. She goes out for dinner, for pizza. She doesn't cry when she learns Meredith is dead. She's doing cartwheels, you know, at the police station, and on and on and on. And that's how it just spun out like that. And she was fascinating, but that's not who she was. And it doesn't make her a murderer.
Okay, a couple of questions that I want to talk about: where you're going, like how people can find out more about you, how they can find more about the book. So before I get there, tell me about, so did you cover the Jodi Arias trial?
Yes, but I didn't go to it like I usually do. Crazy.
Okay, I was curious about your impressions in that case. That was a wild case. And I know that you're commenting on the Durst trial, right?
Yes.
Okay. So without giving away what you're going to talk about on Court TV, tell me, if you would, what are your impressions of what's happening in the Robert Durst trial in Los Angeles?
Well, it's, of course, Dick DeGuerin, who I mentioned earlier, is one of his lawyers, and I know him. And Dave Chess, one of his lawyers, and I know him because we had the David Copperfield case together, the illusionist. We both defended him together. What do I think? It's gone on for a long time. It's pandemic, post-pandemic. My Cox case did. That's hard on jurors. There's a lot of, I think, acrimony in this case. The prosecutor's extremely aggressive, speaking of aggressive. And you know, they brought in the death of his first wife, or the disappearance of his first wife, and then the case where he was acquitted in Galveston for chopping up somebody and throwing him in Galveston Bay. He's acquitted, but they're bringing that in too. And then they're bringing in, you know, Susan Berman's sets. I think that he's probably going to get convicted. I don't know that I agree that you should bring in all these disparate cases, especially he's acquitted in one. And his wife has never been found, and that was from the 80s, to convict him in this case. But everyone, I think, saw the jinx and saw when he supposedly confessed, you know, into his hot mic in the bathroom. I killed them all, you know, things like that, misspelling Beverly and Beverly Hills. And then finally, you know, he's in very ill health and he's really decrepit. And I think he's hard to get those jurors to feel sorry for him. But I think it's going to end in a conviction, don't you? I mean, there's just too much evidence.
I do. And Dick DeGuerin is, you know, when I heard that Robert Durst had been acquitted in Galveston, I was like, that's got to be like a Sun World Times kind of tabloid. No way, couldn't be. Such an unbelievable victory for, you know, I mean, just, I'll call it that. It was an incredible victory for Dick DeGuerin. I mean, just incredible.
Well, it was, and Dick DeGuerin, you know, he had the brands too. And then Robert Hirschhorn, who I used in Cox and Laterno, was a jury consultant in that case with Dick DeGuerin. So, you know, and I think that Durst, his jaw like hit the counsel table. They had a picture of him like this when the jury came in, because he's like, whoa.
Really? Wow, I'm this good. Okay. Yeah. Like, wow. I thought I was good, but I didn't realize I was this good. So, all right. Tell me real quickly, what is the David Copperfield case for those who don't know? I would be a terrible host if I didn't ask.
Well, it was a case, again, it's out of Seattle, and that's why I was involved. There was a woman here that accused him of taking her to his private island, and she made these allegations about him. She was Miss Washington, actually. And it was basically an inveigling case. If you know the kidnapping statute, it has a part that says inveigling from kidnappings back in the 30s and 40s or 20s. And it was all complete hogwash. So Dave Chestnut in Las Vegas, myself and some others were defending David Copperfield. And I was not involved with the grand jury proceedings here, but there were grand jury proceedings here. She went out and made a spectacle of herself, doing some very bad things, trying to get someone to pay her for, and then she made out allegations. It was all splashed over the news. Case was over. I mean, it wasn't great lawyering on my part.
This isn't just a story about trials.
Clearly exonerated. she
It's
showed her
about
true
power,
colors, and it was
perception,
over.
and the
He's
cost
a
of
wonderful
judgment.
person. And,
Because in the courtroom
Court
and
TV's
in
calling me.
life, the
All right.
first story we hear
Ann,
often
You
decides
have been so
everything.
Yeah.
gracious with your time. So gracious. So,
Thank you.
Ann Bremner, thank you for joining us on Killer Cross-Examination. All we can see is your name, which is plenty.
Okay.
So we'll catch up some other time. So go do your
been an honor.
TV commentary. So,
It's been such an honor and pleasure. Thank you. Thank you so much.
thank you so much. Okay.
Thank you. Bye-bye.